Welcome to School Zone, the show all about your local school districts here in the White Mountains. I'm your host, John Larsen. Today we have Dr. Erick Rask and Katie Habgood with us with the school district with our mental health department. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for
I really appreciate you taking time to come and see us, spend some time with us. I think this is a really important topic. So I'm excited to talk about this and visit with you and get some good information from you. Before we get going, if you would, Dr. Rask, if you'd introduce yourself, and then Katie, if you'd introduce yourself when he's done.
Sure. I'm Dr. Rask. I'm the school psychologist for the Shola Unified School District. I provide assessments and mental health services throughout all the school sites in Shola School District.
Great. Where'd you go to school?
What year? So there's been lots of them.
Right out of high school, where'd you go?
So Arizona has been my place of education. I went to NAU for my bachelor's, went to University of Phoenix, and then I went through Capella University for my doctorates.
Great. So were you in psychology the whole time, or had you?
Yep. Originally I have my license in in counseling as my LPC, my licensed professional counselor, as my first licensure, and then I went back to school for my doctorates in school psychology, and so I have my certificate in school as a school psychologist.
Great. So when you went into college, you had psychology in mind, and
not in the least bit, actually.
Not in the least bit. How'd that work?
It changed. Good thing. I actually went in for hotel restaurant management, so not at all associated. So it just worked out that I felt that was my calling.
Yeah. So you got led at some point. You felt like you needed to change to this. Great. Yeah. Good. Well, we're all the better for it. We're grateful we have you.
Thanks.
Katie, tell us about yourself.
So my name is Katie Habgood. I am the school counselor at Nicholas Homestead Elementary. My bachelor's was from the U of A, and my master's degree is in mental health counseling from Capella also.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah.
Good for you. Tucson, huh?
Yes, go Cats.
I'm an ASU fan. We won't bring up what happened a week or so ago.
We don't need to talk about it.
We'll leave that all alone. Well, how are things going in the district? How you guys feel things are going? I know the whole COVID thing just really has us kind of in a mess. But how are things going for you guys as it pertains to your specific job? You tell us first, and then tell us about Nicholas.
So we both have different work opportunities at the school. A lot of my work involves assessments, or I'll do consultations with different schools and some of the different mental health workers at the different school sites. One of the anomalies that have been the biggest one of challenge this year is because I test a lot for learning disabilities. And when you look at learning disabilities, you have to rule out any kind of educational disadvantage. And so now we've had kids out of school for almost 6 months. And so now the difficult part is determined, is it because they've been out of school and not presented those educational opportunities, or is there truly a learning disability? So there's been a real challenge for me in trying to discern, is that a learning disability, or is it the fact that they have not been presented with a lot of educational opportunities that they would if they were on site? Not to say the district didn't do a very good job trying to teach the kids at home, but as everybody knows, that it was kind of thrown at us, and who prepared for that?
Right.
Talking with a lot of teachers, many of them are like, I became a teacher to work with kids,
right?
And now they're not even in my classroom.
Through a computer.
And so, how do I teach now? And how do I really put out my opportunities to learn through a monitor, or So it's been quite a difficult time, not just for the students, but for the faculty as well.
Yeah, and on the flip side, I think it's a little more difficult for those children to actually get online and do that work on the computer when they're just absolutely haven't ever done it before.
There's a
little bit different. I mean, I went back for college. I went online and was able to function pretty well. But I've got 2 kids in college, 3 kids in college. They're all whining about the fact that they're online, right? So I imagine it's got to be really hard for the younger we go, even.
There's a whole socioeconomic impact. A lot of the research that's coming out now is, a lot of your upper socioeconomic groups can afford the high-speed internet. Everybody has their own computers. I mean, they have all those technological resources. And what we're finding is there's always been a socioeconomic split of learning. Like the lower economic people have a difficult time accessing education. Now we see that divide even getting bigger, because now you're at homes where there may be a single mom who has to work, and so who's watching the 5 kids at home, and maybe they have a computer, maybe they don't have internet.
Lucky to have one computer.
Lucky to have one computer.
Probably, if they have internet, it probably stinks like most of the internet on the mountain.
Correct. Like resources in this area are really bad.
Yeah.
And even the infrastructure was not prepared for the demand of internet that we needed when COVID hit.
Right.
So there's so many, it's just this widespread of problems that COVID has caused in the educational system, and we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're learning every single day. It's something different every single day.
Exactly.
Katie, how are things at Nicholas?
You know, I think things are going fairly well at Nicholas. We've been able to really contain the virus, I feel, in our school, and I think we've been really lucky to return in person from day one. So, I mean, we're seeing things like increased anxiety, some increased depression, a need for more coping skills, that kind of thing. But all in all, I think the kids are really grateful to be on campus. I think faculty and staff are really grateful to have kids on campus. So I think that in general, things have been going really well.
Good. I think you probably answered this question, but with COVID, what sort of level of increase in the need for mental health support and services have you seen?
So I think it's pretty widespread. I don't know, you could probably talk a little bit about the younger kids, the struggles you guys have been having. It's just a different group at the younger level than it is the older kids, junior high and high school.
Yeah, I think there's a definite increase in a lot of anxious behavior, a lot of separation anxiety after being home with parents for so long, doing the online thing. So I think that there's been an increase in anxiety, depression, even thoughts of self-harm and suicide at that younger age that we have not seen before.
Can I ask, are you encountering anything with the parents that might be an issue for you and the kids?
Well, I think parents are equally stressed right now. I think life just looks different with COVID. So we've got parents who have lost jobs, whose work looks different, whether it's online or they had to change jobs. Lots of anxiety from parents too. And I think kids feel that and they pick up on that. And then, you know, I think there was that anxiety of having kids go back to in-person schooling. And I think kids picked up on that from their parents. So I have no doubt that parents have a lot of anxiety right now too, and that there are different challenges and struggles that we didn't have before March.
So I hope this isn't an inappropriate question, but have you guys seen any issues where you've had to deal with children who have lost family members from this? I imagine that would be a big deal. Have you had any of those issues?
Good.
We've had a few, but we've actually had a lot of loss. It seems like a lot of these kids have lost parents or had very traumatic events happen to parents that actually were not associated with COVID.
Really?
But definitely we have some kids that have lost loved ones.
Yeah, I think it's been the larger group. I mean, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. I think there may have been one or two cases of interest. Parents are being lost at the school. I just can't remember a case off the top of my head, but I do know that grandparents, aunts, and uncles have impacted a lot of people in the district, a lot of the kids in the district, and family members.
And obviously, you guys are available for them when that happens. And are we being successful? Are we taking care of them? Are we getting them taken care of?
I believe so. I think that, especially at Nicholas, the staff, the teachers, the aides, the principal, everybody is really, they're very community based. So I think everyone really goes out of their way to look out for those kids. So I'm just one more link in that chain.
Okay. Dr. Rask, she's based out of Nicholas, but we have someone at Whipple?
Yes.
We have someone at Linden?
But yes, we have somebody available, but they're not on site. They go out to site once a week, I believe?
Yes.
Once or twice a week.
Okay. And then junior high and high school?
Junior high and high school as well. High school actually has two.
Oh, okay.
And then White Mountain Institute, what's it called now? Anyway, the name has changed, but anyway, there's a counselor that goes out there as well once a week and sees students.
Good. So, what should parents be looking for in their children as far as trying to help them or pay attention to their mental health? What should they be looking for? What should I be looking for in my kids?
Sure. And I think one of the most easiest things to look for is the difference Like, try to get an idea of what your kid was like post, pre-COVID. And really when you start seeing that change of behaviors is when you start trying to get a little bit more engaged with what might be going on with them, what are they struggling with, and a lot of them don't really even know. Why am I at home now with a computer with my mom? Am I feeling anxious? That's weird. I get to be home with my mom. And but the problem that is kind of in fact impacting all of us is that we're social beings.
I was just going to say, socially, all of us want to be with our friends and hang out with the people we love, right?
And that is truly how we learn. We learn how to interact with society, how to have jobs, and we do all that by going to the school system. And it's very difficult when all of that sudden what you've been raised with for, if you went to school if you're a 12th grader or you're a kinder, you spent all these years doing these social activities where you're learning with others, and now you're brought back home and you're learning from a computer. And especially at the lower ages, at the higher end, junior high and high school, there is some more academic rigor with online learning, but they do a little bit of that right now anyway in school. Like AZ Merits online, and a lot of the assessment tools are online, so they're used to that process. Where the little guys, I know they're having a hard time doing the social emotional learning. Like, how do you do that across the screen? You can't sit around in a circle and sing and problem solve as a group when you're trying to do it on Zoom, because the kids are either they're walking across the screen or it's hard to command that attention.
And then, how do you learn to get along with others? How do you learn to share with others? How do you learn all of those things that we learn from being with other people? Right. That makes it really tough. So if parents are noticing, and by the way, I was gonna say, we're not just limited. We're talking a lot about COVID because it's what's impacting us right now. But there are other things going on in the lives of these kids that parents will see a change in behavior. And when they see those things, it may not just be COVID related. It could be increase in drinking or drugs or some of the other issues that kids have. So what are the steps that parents take when they see a change in their child and are worried?
I would probably say, and please jump in, I talk a lot, so I would say anytime you see a change, then investigate. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend it's going to go away. Don't think it's just a phase, because you don't know. You don't know what's going on with your child, and if you don't encourage them to talk, then they're not likely to share, especially at the older ages. And the younger ages, helping them explore that, I think that's important.
Yeah, I think the first step is talking to your child, normalizing feelings, making that emotional discussion very comfortable so that emotions aren't this big scary thing. Keeping in mind that a lot of different emotions can come out and look like anger, but really be, depression or anxiety. So I think that those are kind of things to look for, but talking's the very first step. But taking action, don't wait for there to be a concrete reason to seek help or treatment or whatever.
Great. Let me ask you this. If I as a parent saw an issue with my child, is it available to me to call the school and speak to one of you guys and say, hey?
Absolutely.
And how would they do that? Would they just call the district and look for you, or they call the high school to find you? They'll call Nicholas to find you. Yeah,
I would say start with your kid's school, whichever school you're looking at, and the front desk can direct you to any one of us.
Okay. I think that's great that you're a resource that a parent can maybe have a question or whatever and give you a call. I think that's great. I really appreciate that.
We try to, as a mental health group, to stay connected with as many resources in the community as well.
Well, speaking of which, I was going to ask you, aside from yourselves, what resources are available in the community?
So there is several resources. Unfortunately, as in the rural area that we're at, it is ebbs and flows. Sometimes we have a lot of counselors available. At this point, I think our numbers have gone down for mental health services. Obviously, our local regional behavioral health is ChangePoint. They can contact them. Internationally, there's NAMI, which is a National Association for Mental Illness, and then there's SAMHSA, which is another national organization for mental health resources, information. Locally, there is other mental health resources. We have a resource list that we can make available to you guys as well.
Okay.
That'll have a list and names and numbers of local resources. That gets updated about every 6 months, so I think we have the most updated list of resources available.
Okay. So I think we all know that mental health, I think as a nation, certainly as a state, is underfunded, isn't given the amount of attention and funding that's needed. If someone were interested in jumping on that bandwagon, who do you talk to? Who would someone talk to make the powers that be, whoever they are, aware that this is an important topic for us?
Regarding funding, or regarding they want to get into that field themselves?
Well, if they want to get into that field, I think you can get into that in a school.
Sure.
But I'm more thinking about what's the resources available to us as a community, the lack of funding and all that. Are we contacting our state legislators? And
I think that is the best place to start. That's really, it has to be picked up at a governmental level, because locally there's not enough funding to provide the mental health services we need. It's when we're not a big enough community as it is. You go down to the valley, they have other resources available because there's a lot more resources and funding available. Your rural communities are probably the most impacted mental health most impacted mental health services in the area compared to your cities.
Sure.
They just don't have them.
Right. But I think Show Low School District has, so Missy Starkle is the school counselor at Whipple, and then I'm at Nicholas. We actually are funded through a grant. So I do think that the state is starting to recognize the need for increased services and increased funding. Arizona, before COVID, Arizona was very high on the national suicide rates, and Navajo and Apache County, I think, are the highest suicide rates within Arizona. So that was all before.
And that's a bad thing.
Right.
Yes.
That was all before COVID.
And the struggles have just continued and increased.
Yes. So I think Arizona is starting to recognize. I know that they made this grant available, and I think they have funded, I want to say, around 100 school counselors within Arizona. But we need to build on that momentum. We need to make sure that these grant-funded positions stay around, and that we continue to recognize that we desperately need this in our state.
Yeah, and the bad news is if we don't continue to get that funding, we don't have you.
Correct.
Right.
Because school, that's a whole nother funding for schools. That's a whole nother topic. But if we lose that grant for you, then we can't afford to have that. We can't afford to pay it out of the district funds. So it is really, really important. Are we? Again, I hope this isn't an inappropriate question, but are we looking at more and more increased mental health issues, or would that be our expectation?
I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. The longer COVID is around, the less, the more we're going to see impacting families financially, educationally, people moving, people not being able to stay in the area. Because jobs are being lost. I mean, how many businesses can sustain not being opened? I think there's a whole political venue that impacts the kids at school, and that impacting the families and impacting the kids. So it's going to be something we're really going to have to continue to address and be aware of and adapt.
I just had a thought. Are we seeing also some issues due to? I know that they've talked about increased issues at home as far as domestic violence and that kind of stuff. Has that played into all of this? Have you seen some of that also?
Definitely. Down at Nicholas we have, and I'm sure at Whipple and at the high school, but yeah, divorce rates are up, domestic violence rates are up, child abuse reports are up. There's been a lot of negative impact related to COVID and people being socially isolated and stuck at home, things like losing your income and stress, and yeah, we're definitely seeing that impact.
I'm wondering what can a family do to help themselves if they're seeing some of these issues? Is it as easy as getting outside and going to the park and social distancing, but getting out and away from the house and still spending time with each other, but not inside the house?
Anytime you can get out and just do something active, getting out in the sunshine, doing some physical activity, anything like that. Fresh air is going to be good for you physically anyway, for your physical health. Being locked up inside, breathing stale air, not moving, not getting your blood flowing, not getting that vitamin D from the sun, that's, all that stuff's going to cause more depression. So definitely getting out, doing things as a family is really important. And then reaching out to as many people as you're comfortable, whether it's a small family group, whether it's cousins, doing things where you guys are getting together, obviously taking whatever necessary precautions you need to be able to do that. It's important that we don't allow ourselves to be isolated to the point where we're physically and mentally making ourselves ill.
And especially for children. I mean, those social connections are so important. So anytime, kids, we've got texting and instant messaging and all of this stuff. So anytime we can encourage kids to see each other physically would be great, whether that's outside, taking precautions, or even video chatting. That's a better way to connect. You're at least seeing each other's faces, but getting away from that, even texting, it's just not that social connection that we need.
Yeah. I've noticed for myself, one of the things that I've tried to work on during this time is my patience, because I'm not a super patient guy. I get pretty frustrated and short-fused pretty quickly and easily, and so I know for me, I've kind of stepped back and said, okay, with all this going on, what are some personal things that I can work on and help increase my ability to do it? And patience is one of those for me.
Sure.
Would you recommend that for folks or is that just too much? Sometimes it feels too much for me. I'm not very good at it.
In general, right now, I think shifting the focus away from the things that we can't control to the things we can control is going to put us in a healthier mindset. So that's, working on things like patience, or even, what can I do to keep myself healthy and happy? And really, when we focus on the negatives, it's going to have a negative impact on our self-talk, on our thought process. So in general, just trying to switch the focus. What can I control? What can I do for myself? So things like working on patience, picking up a new hobby, trying to challenge yourself. I think those are really good ways of continuing to grow without, constantly buying into the negativity.
Dr. Rask, anything to add to that?
I think our nature as humans, especially with all this new technology we have, is we have a tendency to focus in on watching movies, playing video games, being on our phones, just doing things, okay, this just distracts me, I'm going to do this.
Right.
I think that honestly is the worst direction to go. Because what happens is you lower that endorphins. You need to get out, take up hiking, bike riding, skateboarding, running, whatever in the summertime, swimming, doing something physical, not just for yourself but with your family. Get everybody out so we're having fun and because all that media stuff just brings in a lot of drama, unfortunately. Yeah, and I know that kids love these video games and I think they're fine. But I really not staying connected as a family, doing something physical is really a detriment to the family. And I know it's hard. A lot of people have jobs and who wants to drag 6 kids out to the park, but it's super important.
It's going to have to be a want to, right? It's going to have to be a priority.
And to get through this whole pandemic stuff, we need to make some changes. And that's one of them, because we're being very much drawn to even watching, the whole political things that are going on, watching it on TV, watching it on our phones, that is causing all that stress and depression. And we need to separate ourselves from that a little bit, focus on our families and on ourselves by doing something away from that.
Okay. So the last week of school, the high school at least, was it the junior high also, or just the high school went online?
Just the high school.
Just the high school went online. Yeah. So you guys all met in the elementary schools and the junior high in person. But there's a possibility, there's a few possibilities, but ultimately that we'll have to continue distance learning, online learning. Any thoughts or ideas about how to continue to work through that and make that as advantageous and we're successful as we can?
I think maintaining a routine is probably one of the most important things. For teenagers and some of those older kids, maintaining a good sleep-wake schedule, not staying up until 1 on the video games,
Right.
But having them, maintain a good schedule, healthy eating, getting outside, like Erick said, maintaining your hygiene. Those kinds of things make a really big difference. Exercise, one of the biggest things that we can do.
Great.
Yeah,
Anything else?
I think it's, and I wish there was a one good answer for everyone, but of course everybody's going to be impacted by it differently. I would say absolutely be taking care of yourself, staying with the routines, but reaching out as well to your school counselors, where your kids go to school, talk to them, hey, what can I do for some activities that's going to help my kid today? And we're going to be a resource. We're not going to have all the answers because it's not a packed answer.
Yeah, even if we're online, you guys are still available.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Yes.
Great. Did I miss anything? I mean, we've spent almost a half hour talking, and I don't know if I missed anything for you or not.
I don't think so. I guess if anything we want to be able to leave is the people that there is resources. The school is a good resource. We don't provide that monthly counseling that's provided by your local providers, but we do provide crisis services. We do provide interventions when needed. Obviously, I'm going to put that little caveat in there. If you're danger to self, danger to others, you need to call 911. Don't call the school. That's not the person number to call. So if any way you're at risk or
But if you do, we're going to get help for you.
absolutely,
Right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't call us because you don't want to call 911.
right.
If we're the only one you want to call.
Yeah,
Right?
give us a call.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you taking time to come out and visit with us, and I think this is really good information for the community. And the big thing for me is, we're just really so grateful for the kids, and we love them, and we want to see them be successful in every way possible. And
Absolutely.
and you're a huge part of that. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us here on the School Zone, and we'll see you again soon.